The banquet hall glittered under a constellation of chandeliers. But the air was thick with something sharper than champagne bubbles. I stood by the bar, watching my wife, Claire, laugh too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. Her colleague, Mark, leaned in close his hand, brushing her arm as he whispered something that made her eyes flicker with guilt. I wasn't supposed to be here. Claire had insisted I skip this company dinner, claiming it was just a boring work thing. But I'd shown up anyway, driven by a nagging instinct I couldn't shake. Now, as Mark's smug grin met my gaze across the room, he raised his glass in a mocking toast. "How does it feel?" he mouthed, his lips curling with cruel confidence. My stomach churned, not with jealousy, but with the weight of a truth I'd uncovered just days ago, a truth that would unravel everything. 2 weeks earlier, I'd found the first crack in our marriage. Claire's phone buzzed late at night, and when I glanced at the screen, a message from M glowed, "Miss you already. Same time tomorrow." My heart sank, but I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I dug deeper, piecing together late-night meetings, hushed calls, and her sudden obsession with work trips. By the time I hacked into her email, the affair was undeniable. Mark, her married colleague, was the other man. But I wasn't the only one betrayed. Mark's wife, Emily, deserved to know the truth too. I found Emily on social media, her profile filled with photos of a seemingly perfect life, her and Mark smiling at their daughter's soccer games, their 10th anniversary trip to Paris. My message to her was brief but deliberate. "I think we need to talk about our spouses." When we met at a quiet cafe, her face was a mask of disbelief as I shared the evidence, screenshots, emails, even a hotel receipt. He swore it was just work stress. She whispered, her hands trembling around her coffee cup. How could I be so blind? Emily wasn't just angry. She was devastated. But beneath her pain burned a resolve that matched my own. We didn't want revenge for its own sake. We wanted justice. A reckoning that would force Claire and Mark to face the wreckage they'd caused. Over the next week, we crafted a plan not to scream or fight, but to expose them in a way they couldn't escape. The company dinner, a glittering showcase of their firm's success, was the perfect stage. Tonight, as I stood in the banquet hall, I felt Emily's presence across the room. She'd arrived separately, poised and elegant in a navy dress. Her eyes locked on mine with a nod of silent agreement. The plan was simple but brutal. We'd let Claire and Mark think they were untouchable until the moment we pulled the rug out from under them. The company's CEO, a stickler for integrity, was in attendance, along with dozens of colleagues who'd whispered about Mark's charm and Claire's ambition. They had no idea what was coming. Mark's taunt still hung in the air as I sipped my drink, letting his words fuel my resolve. Claire hadn't noticed me yet, too caught up in her performance as the star employee. I caught Emily's eye again, and she gave a subtle signal it's time. The dinner was about to shift from celebration to catastrophe, and I was ready to watch it burn. The MC tapped the microphone, welcoming everyone to the annual gala, a night to honor our team's hard work. He beamed, oblivious to the storm brewing. I moved through the crowd, my heart steady despite the chaos in my chest. Emily was already near the stage, clutching a folder that held our evidence, emails, texts, photos, proof of an affair that violated not just our marriages, but the company's strict ethics code. Mark, a senior manager, and Claire, his rising star subordinate, had been reckless, leaving a digital trail that would cost them everything. As the MC called Mark to the stage to accept an award for leadership, I felt a surge of grim satisfaction. He strode up, all charisma and arrogance, shaking hands as applause filled the room. Claire clapped hardest, her smile radiant but brittle. I leaned against a pillar, my smirk growing as Emily stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Before we continue," Emily said, her tone calm but commanding, "I'd like to share something with the team." The room fell silent, curious, Mark's grin faltered as Emily opened the folder, projecting the first email onto the massive screen behind him. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the words appeared. I can't stop thinking about last night. You're worth the risk. Signed, Claire. The hall erupted in whispers. Mark froze, his face draining of color. Claire's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes darting to me, then to Emily. I stepped forward, my voice steady. How does it feel, Mark? I asked, echoing his taunt. To have your lies exposed in front of everyone you've deceived. The truth hit like a tidal wave, and I watched it sweep them away. The room was a pressure cooker, the air thick with shock and murmurs. Claire's face crumpled, her confident facade shattered as colleagues turned to stare. Mark, still on stage, stammered, trying to salvage his reputation with a weak laugh. This is a misunderstanding, he said, his voice cracking. But the screen behind him told a different story, cycling through damning messages Emily and I had meticulously compiled. Emily stood tall, her voice unwavering as she addressed the crowd. This isn't just personal betrayal, she said, holding up the folder. Mark and Claire violated the company's code of conduct, using their positions to hide an affair that disrespects their families and this organization. The CEO, a stern woman in her 50s, stepped forward, her expression a mix of fury and disbelief. She signaled for the projector to stop, but the damage was done. The room buzzed with judgment. I caught Claire's eye as she pushed through the crowd toward me, her face a mask of panic. James, please, she whispered, grabbing my arm. This isn't what it looks like. But her words felt hollow, like the promises she'd made when I first suspected something was wrong. I pulled away, my voice low but firm. You don't get to rewrite the truth, Claire. Not anymore. Mark, meanwhile, was cornered by the CEO and HR director, who descended from the head table like hawks. Emily joined them, calmly handing over the folder. Everything you need is here, she said. Dates, locations, even expense reports they falsified for their meetings. The HR director flipped through the pages, her jaw tightening. Mark's charm was useless now. He looked like a man watching his empire crumble. I hadn't planned to feel this calm, but there was a strange relief in seeing the truth laid bare. For months, I'd wrestled with doubt, wondering if I was paranoid, if I'd misread the signs. Finding those messages had gutted me, but they also freed me. Claire wasn't the woman I'd married, or maybe I'd never truly known her. Either way, I wasn't here to beg for answers. I was here to end the charade. As the crowd's whispers grew louder, Claire tried again, her voice trembling. James, let's talk privately. I can explain. But I shook my head, pointing to the screen where a photo of her and Mark at a hotel bar glowed like an accusation. You explained enough in those emails, I said. You chose him over our marriage. Now you live with it. Emily approached me, her eyes soft but resolute. We did the right thing, she murmured. I nodded, grateful for her strength. She'd lost as much as I had more. Maybe, with a daughter caught in the crossfire. Yet she'd held her head high, refusing to let Mark's betrayal define her. Together, we'd turned our pain into a weapon, not for revenge, but for accountability. The CEO called for a recess, ushering Mark and Claire into a side room with HR. The crowd dispersed, some whispering in shock, others casting sympathetic glances my way. I didn't want their pity. I wanted to walk away from this night with my dignity intact. Emily and I stepped outside, the cool night air a sharp contrast to the stifling hall. What now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We rebuild, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. We don't let their choices break us. Emily nodded, a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope, not for my marriage, but for myself. Back inside, the dinner resumed, but the mood was fractured. Colleagues avoided Claire's empty seat, and Mark's award sat abandoned on the stage. I didn't need to stay to know what would happen next. The evidence was ironclad. Their careers were likely over. But that wasn't the victory. The victory was standing here, free from their lies, ready to face whatever came next. As Emily and I walked to our cars, she paused, looking back at the glowing banquet hall. "Do you think they'll ever understand what they've lost?" she asked. I thought of Claire's desperate pleas, Mark's crumbling bravado. "Maybe," I said, "but that's their burden now, not ours." The days after the dinner were a blur of silence and chaos. Claire moved out the next morning, her suitcases packed in a frenzy as she avoided my gaze. "I'm sorry, James," she mumbled, but her apology felt like a formality, empty of remorse. I didn't argue or beg her to stay. The truth had burned away any desire to salvage what we'd had. Instead, I watched her car disappear down the street, feeling lighter than I'd expected. Emily called me that afternoon, her voice steady but tired. "Mark's been suspended pending an investigation," she said. "Claire too. The company's taking it seriously." I wasn't surprised. The evidence we presented was a career death sentence, proof of not just an affair, but misuse of company resources. Still, knowing they'd face consequences didn't erase the ache in my chest. It was one thing to expose their betrayal. It was another to live with the aftermath. I spent the next few days sorting through our life together photos, mementos, the lease on our apartment. Every item was a reminder of the future I'd thought we'd share. Claire and I had been married 5 years, built a home filled with laughter and plans. Now, those memories felt like lies. I boxed up her things, resisting the urge to burn them. Anger was easy, but I wanted to be better than that. Emily and I met again at the same cafe, a ritual that was becoming our anchor. She looked drained, her eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. "Lily keeps asking where Daddy is," she said, referring to her daughter. "I don't know how to tell her he might not come home." My heart ached for her. I'd lost a wife, but Emily was fighting to protect a child caught in the wreckage. "You'll find the words," I said. "You're stronger than you think." We talked for hours, not just about the affair, but about who we were before it. Emily was a graphic designer, passionate about art and fiercely protective of her daughter. I shared stories of my work as a freelance writer, how I'd always dreamed of writing a novel, but let life get in the way. There was a quiet understanding between us, a bond forged in shared betrayal. We weren't friends, not exactly, but we were allies, tethered by a common goal. The company's investigation moved swiftly. By the end of the week, Claire and Mark were called to a disciplinary hearing. Emily and I weren't invited, but we didn't need to be. The HR director emailed us updates, confirming that the evidence had been reviewed. "Termination is likely," the email read. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I felt hollow. Justice didn't fill the void Claire had left. That night, I found an old journal in a drawer, filled with notes from the early days of our marriage. Claire's handwriting looped across the pages. Planning vacations, dreaming of a family. I traced the words, wondering when she'd stopped believing in us. Had it been gradual, or had Mark's charm swept her away in a single moment? I'd never know, and maybe that was okay. Some questions didn't need answers. Emily texted me late, a photo of Lily painting at a kitchen table. "She's my reason to keep going," the message read. I smiled, envying her clarity. I didn't have a child to anchor me, but I had myself, and maybe that was enough for now. I replied, "She's lucky to have you." As I hit send, I realized I was starting to believe in my own strength too. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from Claire. Her voice was soft, broken. "James, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to explain. Can we talk?" I deleted the message without responding. She'd had her chance to talk, to choose me, to choose honesty. Now, I was choosing myself. The weeks that followed were a test of endurance. Claire's calls became more frequent, each voicemail a plea for reconciliation. I made a mistake. James, I love you. But love wasn't enough to undo the betrayal. I blocked her number, not out of spite, but necessity. I needed space to rebuild, to rediscover who I was without her shadow. Emily and I kept in touch, our conversations shifting from strategy to survival. She'd hired a lawyer to navigate her divorce, determined to protect Lily's future. Mark's fighting for custody, she told me over coffee, her voice tight with worry. He's using his charm to play the victim. I admired her resilience, the way she channeled her pain into action. It inspired me to face my own unraveling life. I started writing again, pouring my anger and grief into a novel. The words came slowly at first, but each sentence felt like a step forward. My protagonist was a man betrayed, not unlike me, but his story wasn't about revenge, it was about redemption. Writing became my therapy, a way to process the hurt without letting it define me. One evening, Emily invited me to her daughter's art show at school. I hesitated, unsure if I belonged in her world. But she insisted. Lily asked if the nice man could come. She said, laughing softly. The event was a burst of color and chaos, with kids proudly displaying their paintings. Lily, a bright-eyed 7-year-old, ran up to me, holding a canvas of a sunny meadow. "This is for you," she said, shy but proud. I knelt down, my throat tight. "It's beautiful, Lily. Thank you." Emily watched us, her smile bittersweet. Later, as we walked to the parking lot, she admitted, "Seeing Lily happy keeps me grounded. But I still wake up angry some days." I nodded, understanding too well. "Anger's okay," I said. "It means you're still fighting." She squeezed my hand, a fleeting gesture of gratitude, and I felt a warmth I hadn't expected. The company's final decision came a week later. Claire and Mark were fired. The news spread quickly, their reputations in tatters. I didn't celebrate, but I felt a quiet satisfaction. They'd built their affair on lies, and now those lies had cost them everything. Emily called me that night, her voice lighter. "It's over," she said. "At least that part is." But it wasn't over for us. Divorce proceedings loomed, and with them, the challenge of untangling our lives from the people who'd hurt us. I met with a lawyer, signing papers that felt like cutting away dead weight. The apartment, once ours, was now mine alone. I rearranged the furniture, painted the walls, made it my own. It wasn't home yet, but it was a start. Claire sent a letter, bypassing my block number. "I know I hurt you, but I'm trying to be better. Please give me a chance." I read it once, then tucked it away. Maybe one day I'd forgive her, but not now. Forgiveness wasn't about her, it was about me. And I wasn't ready. Emily and I met again, this time at a park where Lily played on the swings. We sat on a bench, watching the world move on around us. "Do you ever wonder what's next?" she asked. I thought about my novel, the empty apartment, the flicker of hope I'd started to feel. "Every day," I said, "but I'm starting to believe it'll be good." Life settled into a new rhythm, one I hadn't expected to find so soon. My novel was taking shape, each chapter a small victory over the chaos of the past. I'd wake early, brew coffee, and write until the world felt manageable again. The story wasn't just fiction, it was my way of making sense of betrayal, of finding meaning in the ruins. Emily and I grew closer, not romantically, but as confidants. We'd meet for coffee or walks in the park, sharing updates on our divorces and dreams for the future. Her strength was infectious. She was navigating custody battles with fierce determination, always putting Lily first. "I want her to know she's enough," Emily said one day, her eyes bright with conviction. I admired her, not just for her resilience, but for her ability to love so fiercely despite her pain. One afternoon, Lily invited me to help her paint a mural in their backyard. I arrived with a bag of brushes, unsure what to expect. Lily handed me a paint can, grinning. "You do the sky," she said, pointing to a blank wall. We spent hours splashing colors, laughing as paint smudged our clothes. Emily joined us, her laughter a rare, unguarded sound. For a moment, we were just three people creating something beautiful, untouched by the past. But the past wasn't done with us. Claire showed up at my apartment one evening, unannounced. She looked different, thinner, her eyes shadowed with regret. "I just need 5 minutes," she pleaded. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on the couch, twisting her hands. "I've lost everything. James. My job. My reputation. You. I know I don't deserve you, but I'm begging for a chance to make it right." Her words stirred something in men at love, but pity. She wasn't the confident woman I'd married. She was broken, grasping at a life she'd thrown away. "Claire," I said, my voice steady, "you made your choices. I'm making mine now." She cried, but I didn't comfort her. When she left, I locked the door, feeling a finality I hadn't before. Emily faced her own confrontation. Mark had been reaching out, promising to change, to be a better father. He thinks he can charm his way back, she told me, her voice thick with frustration. But I see through him now. She was moving forward, enrolling in an art course, planning a future for her and Lily. Her courage pushed me to keep writing, to keep believing in my own path. My novel was nearly finished, a story of a man who loses everything but finds himself. I sent the draft to an editor friend, nervous but hopeful. Her feedback was glowing. "This is raw, James. It's real." For the first time, I saw a future where I wasn't defined by Claire's betrayal, but by what I could create. Emily and I celebrated small victories, her first art exhibition, my first agent query. We weren't healing together, exactly, but we were healing alongside each other. One evening, as we watched Lily chase fireflies, Emily said, "I didn't think I'd smile again. Thank you for reminding me I could." I didn't have words, so I just nodded, grateful for her presence in my life. Months passed, and the wounds began to scar over. My divorce was finalized, the papers signed with a strange sense of relief. The apartment felt like mine now, filled with new books and drafts of my novel. I'd started running again, the rhythm of my steps a reminder that I was moving forward, one stride at a time. Emily's divorce was messy, tangled in custody disputes. Mark fought hard, painting himself as a reformed man, but the court saw through his act. Emily won primary custody of Lily, a victory that left her sobbing with relief. "She's safe," she told me over the phone, her voice breaking. "That's all that matters." I celebrated with her, sending a bouquet of flowers with a note, "For you and Lily, keep shining." My novel found a publisher, a small press that believed in its raw honesty. When I held the first proof copy, I felt a pride I hadn't known in years. The dedication read, "To those who rebuild from ruins." It wasn't just for Might, it was for Emily, for Lily, for anyone who'd faced betrayal and chosen to rise. Claire reached out one last time, an email this time. "I'm moving away, starting over. I hope you find happiness, James." I didn't reply, but I wished her well in my heart. She'd been a chapter in my life, but not the whole story. I was writing a new one now, and it was mine to shape. Emily's art career was blossoming. Her exhibition drew a small but enthusiastic crowd, her paintings vibrant with emotion. I stood in the gallery, marveling at her talent. Lily tugged my sleeve, pointing to a canvas of a sunrise. "That's Mommy's hope," she said, and I saw Emily in every brushstroke, fierce, unbroken, radiant. We didn't talk about Mark or Claire much anymore. They were shadows, fading with time. Instead, we talked about Dream's next book, her next show, Lily's latest obsession with astronomy. Our lives were separate but intertwined, a quiet support system built on mutual respect. One evening, Emily invited me to dinner at her place. Lily set the table, chattering about constellations. As we ate, I realized how far we'd come. The banquet hall, Mark's sneer, Claire's lies, they felt like another lifetime. We weren't defined by that night. We were defined by what we'd built since. After dinner, Lily showed me her telescope, pointing out stars in the crisp night sky. Emily stood beside me, her shoulder brushing mine. "You ever think about the future?" she asked. I looked at the stars, then at her. "All the time," I said, "and it looks bright." A year after the dinner, I stood in a bookstore, signing copies of my novel. Readers shared how the story moved them, and I felt a quiet pride not just in the book, but in the man I'd become. The betrayal that once threatened to break me had instead pushed me to create, to grow, to live. Emily was there, Lily by her side, both beaming as they held a copy. "You did it," Emily said, her eyes warm. Lily hugged me, whispering, "I'm proud of you, James." Their presence meant more than the crowd's applause. They were my unexpected family, not by blood but by choice. Life wasn't perfect. There were still nights when doubt crept in, when I wondered if I could have saved my marriage. But those moments passed, replaced by a certainty that I was where I was meant to be. Emily and I weren't a couple, but we were something deeper, partners in healing, in hope, in rebuilding. Her art was gaining recognition. Her paintings featured in local galleries. Lily was thriving, her laughter a reminder of what mattered most. We'd both faced the worst and come out stronger, not because we sought revenge, but because we chose to rise above it. The company dinner was a distant memory, its sting dulled by time. Mark had moved across the country, his career in ruins. Claire sent occasional updates, vague mentions of a new job, a new life. I didn't hate them. I didn't need to. They'd lost more than we ever could: their integrity, their families, themselves. As I drove home from the signing, the city lights blurred past, a reminder of how far I'd come. The truth I'd smirked at that night wasn't just Claire and Mark's downfall, it was my own strength, my refusal to be defined by their choices. I pulled into my driveway, the stars above bright and endless. The future was mine, and I was ready for it.